A very good evening to all of you. I'm Asmita Patel.
Your voice is not clear. Okay, yeah, now it's clear. Yeah.
A very good evening to all of you. I'm Asmita Patel, and it is my pleasure to speak here today. This is the second session of our PhD coursework, and the theme for this session is an introduction to scientific inquiry. We are fortunate to have with us Professor Dr. Muhammad Akhtar Siddiqui as the resource person. Dr. Siddiqui has 40 years of profound experience in teaching and research in the field of education, including 20 years of experience in administration. Sir retired from Jamia Millia Islamia University, Delhi, as Professor of Education. He has also served as Chairman of NCTE, a statutory body under Ministry of HRD, as well as a Chairman of NCTE Review Committee, appointed by MHRD. Dr. Siddiqui completed DES from University of Leeds, UK, PhD from Jamia Millia Islamia University, MCom from University of Delhi, and MF from Himachal University. He specializes in the area of education management and administration, teaching education, comparative education, education of disadvantaged groups, and minorities. Sir has more than 60 publications, including books, research papers, articles, chapters, and research reports in his areas of specialization. He has also immensely contributed in these areas by way of teaching and research supervision of almost 30 PhD and postdoctoral research scholars, of which 26 have already been awarded the PhD degrees. He has also contributed through curriculum and material development, organization of professional development programs, and undertaking research projects and studies. We wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, and we eagerly wait to listen to your words on the topic of today. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for giving such a detailed introduction. Basically, I'm a teacher. And I enjoy being a teacher. And here I'm present as a teacher. Of course, in my kitty, some of the teaching learning experiences are there. And that is, I think, the most important and briefest introduction. But thank you for giving the audience such a detailed introduction. Since in education, mostly dealing with the people in education, teachers, teacher educators, and I said, as I said earlier, teacher educators, administrators, etc. And towards the end of my career, I was also part of the national policy framing, planning for education, planning and policy making for education in the country. And I served on many committees, in fact, a large number of committees regarding policy. I was involved in the finalization of the national policy on new education policy 2020, and a number of recommendations I'm happy that have been incorporated in the policy. But everywhere, I feel that research has been of a great help to me in dealing with whatever issues come to before me as a teacher, as a teacher educator, as a policy maker, as an administrator, etc. In this group, I have been informed. Earlier, I thought that this group entirely consists of the legal experts and the law graduates who have taken admission in PhD program. So I thought, why lawyers in fact need research? And I wanted to put this question because many of us professional. For example, lawyers, they may be physicians, they may be sometimes this question rises before them, and maybe you also before me, to raise this question. You may think that you are not a scientist. I mean, some of them are, of course, scientists in this group, nor you are going to be a scientist in future. Then why do you study about research and about research complete training? And you may think, or the others may also think that it is not related to your legal profession, level of profession. If suppose you are a school teacher And you may think that, no, it is not related to me. Why should I go for research, and why should I study research about research methodology? What is research? I have two reasons in my mind, which you may agree or you may add to that also. We may not agree also. We will discuss it at the end. If we don't agree, long legal career, see, legal practice or physician's practice, school teaching practice, even higher education practice, as a teacher, as a professor, I think you agree that you will always need to keep yourself abreast of the changes and improvements that are taking place in the field. This is every practitioner, whoever is an informed practitioner and wants to remain an informed practitioner, he would like to absorb, he would like to be in touch with keeping oneself abreast of the changes which are taking place in his or her profession and the improvements which are being introduced in the profession. And you know, we are living in a knowledge society. We are living in knowledge economy where everything revolves around knowledge. It means that it is something highly dynamic. Knowledge keeps changing, and knowledge is the basis of all kinds of activities in the society. All the technologies are based on knowledge. So, and this knowledge is completely dynamic. It is continuously expanding, changing, and therefore the technologies are changing. The skills of doing any work, competencies of doing any work, they are changing. The equipment which are being used in any profession, they are changing fast. Therefore, you as a practitioner in any field whatsoever you are in, you would certainly like to keep yourself abreast of the changes and improvements that are taking place in your particular field, in the respective fields. And in order to do this, if you want to keep abreast of the changes taking place, please remember, the moment we say knowledge is expanding or changes are taking place or improvements are taking place, these things are based on systematic uh, creation of knowledge, application of knowledge, conversion of that knowledge into technology and application of that knowledge. So it is a long. First of all, a new being that it is converted to technology, certain hardware technology or software technology, certain new formulae, certain new methods, certain new techniques of teaching, doing something or practicing or dealing with in the court, etc. come. So all this is based on research. It is nothing based on hearsay or nothing based on said by some expert. By a word of mouth spreads everywhere and everybody is accepting it and following it. This knowledge, which is coming up and is being applied in the fields for improvements in the respective fields, is based on a very systematic, complicated process. So, whenever you are going to keep yourself abreast of changes or improvements which are being introduced or suggested, you, as a knowledge, as an intelligent consumer of that knowledge, you would like to understand through what process this knowledge has been created. Is it a sound process or it is not a sound process? Is it worth accepting? It's not acceptable. I give you a very simple example nowadays. Said that the vaccine for COVID has been developed by Germany and Pfizer is producing it on a very large scale. And it is being, orders have been already placed by a number of European countries in America for supply of this. But the Indian medical practitioners have rejected that vaccine. Are you aware of that? And the very important reason which they have given, which is that they say that the success rate of this vaccine is 94.5%. Why 5.5 rate is there? It's a very high rate in case in medical terms. I mean, in case of 5.5, if you multiply it by the population of 1.3 billion, then it comes to a large number of population. So the Indian medical practitioners say that this is a very high rate of failure. Number one. Number two, research has been and it's converted into a technology of vaccine in controlled situation conditions. Those controlled conditions, though, are not generally obtained in India. The kind of level of development we have, the kind of, now, for example, they say that a very binding condition is that it should always be stored in a place which has -7 plus 70 plus degrees centigrade, -70. So we in generally don't have such refrigerators, and in transportation we don't have that kind of system where we can transport from one place to another under that those controlled conditions. So perhaps we need some other kind of alternative technology, not this one, and therefore we have not rushed for putting any kind of order for this technology. So what is this? Because we understand the research methodology, what is the error rate? That is a part of the research process. So when you understand this from the researcher's perspective, as you are a researcher, then perhaps you will be able to appreciate the new knowledge. Otherwise, you will accept whatever is coming to you, and then you will also be committing mistakes in that process of application of that new knowledge. Also, you will need to judge the quality of research. Merely by having a new knowledge, merely by having a new equipment, you can't be satisfied. You want to judge the quality of that research. And the quality, when we say the quality of that research, what is the objectivity? What is the reliability? What is the validity of the tools used? What is the size of the sample? What are the objective ways in which? Because depends the generalizability of that research. So whether it is possible to generalize in my profession, my area, or it is not possible. So unless you understand the nuances of the research process, perhaps you will not be able to appreciate the quality of research. And therefore you must know, as a professional, whatever be your profession, as an informed person, what is research and what is the research process. Also professionally, as a professional, wherever you are, as an educator, as a teacher, as a or as a legal practitioner, even as a physician, you always need to continually examine your own practice. Whatever I am doing, is that okay? I'm doing path, I'm doing correctly, or do I need some kind of change, some kind of improvement? So sometimes you conduct research yourself. You may need your practice with the practice of some other people, your co-professionals. Like to compare your method with the methods of others which are being used in similar kind of settings, and see what are the results. Their results are better or my results are better. You would like to improve your own practice. There is a kind of research which is called action research. So you want to improve your action, comparing, by examining, by indulging in a very small research, piece of research. So from that point of view, to continuously improve yourself as a professional, continuously reassure yourself, yes, I'm on the right path. My method is more suitable, effective in my setting, in my conditions, and therefore you can carry on with that method. So that way you need research. So these are at least two possible reasons. And when we say we are professionals, please remember, a professional is self-responsible as a teacher, as a teacher, self-responsible to continuously update my knowledge. Nobody is going to tell you. To provide the students whatever they need according to the curriculum on the basis of latest, more authentic information and knowledge. So therefore, as a professional also, you are duty bound to know what is research and how the knowledge is emerging, to what is That is why I think it is necessary for all of you to study this. Now, we are going to talk really about introduction to the scientific inquiry and what is scientific inquiry. What is inquiry? Okay. Research, you can, in very simple words, we can define research. That can be defined in terms of systematic inquiry. There are two words here, systematic and inquiry. Inquiry is to find out, and systematic, we follow a particular, we follow a certain recognized standard process to conduct that inquiry. So basically, it is. So it involves finding out something which was previously not known. So finding something new, creating new knowledge people didn't know. So by way of following various methods, we discovered something new and we articulated it and presented it before the world. Or it is possible that we are not finding something new, new knowledge is not being generated by us, but we are in the process of research. We are shedding fresh light on any given issue from a different perspective, from a different angle, in a different setting, on a given problem. That is also research. If you are systematically able to convince, yes, look, we can see this issue from this social perspective also, from this technical perspective, from this financial perspective also, from this economic perspective also, from the health perspective. Nowadays, you see, because of COVID, of course, as an alternative, new learning spaces are being created for students, both at the school and higher education level. But has anybody seen it from the perspective, scientifically, from the perspective of health, from the perspective of psychology of learners, and from the perspective of the quality of learning taking place as a consequence of online learning? And if it is so, then what are the recommendations? Hello? So this is the mean scientific inquiry. Find out something new to this inquiry. What is scientific inquiry? We will come to know later on. But this is both existing knowledge to be seen from a distant perspective, re-establishing that knowledge, or creating something new to this process. So creating a, let's say, giving a new formula, giving a new theory, giving a new solution, all those things are included as a consequence of systematic inquiry. In practice, we are engaged in research in our everyday life. I mean, even you forget about what you are. You are a lawyer, you are a teacher, you are a scientist. But in everyday life, we all are engaged in research. As a common citizen, we are engaged in research. The only difference is that we are not necessarily conscious that we are doing research. So when we are buying anything, we are doing a kind of survey, we are doing a kind of research, we are comparing the quality, the characteristics, we are comparing the prices, and a very highly informed judgment we are taking. Look, this is the best for these reasons. So we have a supporting argument also. Why are we narrowing down to one particular type of our selection or to particular type of decision? We have our own argument. That may differ from person to person. I'm not saying that you're doing a very systematic research, but that is also a kind of research which we are conducting in everyday life. Housewives are doing. We are going to the market, we are doing some kind of shopping, we are doing some kind of comparisons, we are collecting data or information, and then we are deciding. But we are not aware that we are doing research. We are finding that even people like research while he is doing, though motor mechanic is a technician, he is not a professional, and he is not supposed to know research methodology. He is not supposed to even, in fact, required to update his of doing things. See, mechanical number of vehicles of a particular type, different types. If a mechanic, on the basis of his experience, on the basis of his observation of certain defects in a particular class of vehicles, is able to generalize. In this kind of make, generally the engine has this kind of problem after so many of kilometers of uses, etc. Then he is doing research. Likewise, the physician, if he kind of generalization for a particular class of patients. So patient example from economically weaker have these kind of deficiencies, you can generalize without entering into a kind of systematic research. So research activity, you can say pervasive. It is pervaded in all our life. Most of the times when we are doing research as a common man or a common practitioner, we are not aware of that we are doing research. But of course, a very fundamental characteristic is that we are not following any methodology in those circumstances. So we can't say, yes, you can also follow it, or it is a rule, it is a theory, or it is a principle, or it is a formula. Now, in systematic inquiry, the knowledge is verified. That is very important. In research is a systematic inquiry, and the purpose is that produce verified knowledge, a knowledge which is systematically produced. So it has two purposes. You can say systematic inquiry has two purposes: to gain knowledge, new knowledge, or to verify existing knowledge. Okay, these are the two major purposes of research. Either you gain, as I said earlier, also you acquire something new, or you look from a new perspective. So, or you sometimes verify what is existing. You apply that knowledge in your context and say, yes, this formula is applicable in my situation as well. So you verify the existing knowledge, you reassure about that knowledge. But in both the cases, you follow a systematic inquiry procedure. You don't say on the basis of any kind of hearsay or one-time use of or application of that knowledge. You follow a systematic procedure, then only you verify the knowledge, or then only you produce new knowledge. So research means detailed study of a subject. So it is not just looking at a few examples or a few experiences which occurred to me, or a few reflections coming to me. That is not research. You can say some of the philosophers whose ideas are wonderful, they perhaps acted upon intuition. They acted upon some reflection. We are not talking about that kind of research. Research has a basic requirement that the study has to be detailed on a given subject, whatever subject you choose. So when you do research, you collect and analyze facts and information and try to gain new knowledge or new understanding. Now, different people have defined research in different ways. This is one perspective to understand the meaning of research, that it's a detailed study of a subject, and there you try to collect data, you analyze the data, the facts and information, and try to gain new knowledge. You try to develop a new understanding about that subject. It is a more systematic activity. If we talk about the nature of the research, especially in social sciences, of course in natural sciences also, it's a more systematic activity directed towards a discovery. Now, this is one perspective. Karlinger is a very famous researcher, writer. He has written a lot of material on research methodology and research. Now, he says that research is a systematic activity which is directed towards discovery and development of an organized body of knowledge. So discovery is important. But this meaning, I feel, is more related to natural science discovery. We in social sciences, we don't all the time discover new knowledge. So it is this meaning of discovery and development of an organized body of knowledge is more relevant perhaps to natural sciences, not to social sciences. The main difference, you can say, in the nature of research between social sciences and natural sciences may lie in the conduct and method of research, how the research is conducted, what methods are used. There are methods which are used in natural sciences. There are certain other kinds of methods which are used in social sciences. And the difference is not based on the rationale of the research. The rationale of the research is common in natural sciences, social sciences. And that rationale is acquisition of knowledge, acquisition of information. So rationale of research is common in all types of research, natural sciences, social sciences, but the difference lies in the methodology. Though I can say now, even in social sciences, particularly in the field of education, nowadays we are using number of methods used in the natural sciences. For example, the experimental research methodology we are using in education, in social sciences also. So a lot of development has taken place, but predominantly in natural sciences, we discover something. We discover new knowledge, a new body of knowledge. And social sciences also we do, but it is not a kind of discovery. You can say it is a kind of interpretation of the phenomena existing in the society in different forms. So from our own perspective, for our own objectives, we interpret it, we gather data, and then we articulate it, present it, and then apply it. There is also another type of research which is called applied research. In applied research, the goal is to provide a sound information for decision making. So it is a kind of decision making research. So you can say there may be some research which is decision oriented. There may be some research which is generalization oriented, where theory is developed, where principles, new principles are evolved. But this is another way of looking at the researches, maybe decision oriented research or generalization oriented research. In some literature, we find that the use of the term of research in the modern literature is quite broader. It is applied to acquisition of any form of knowledge or information. So any quest for knowledge is the essential aspect of research. So you don't you can say you can't say this is applied knowledge, or this is kind of fundamental knowledge, or this is other types of knowledge. All kinds of research is ultimately applied in one form or the other, sooner or later. So in social conditions, in say in various ways, and therefore all kinds of research is within the domain of research. So we can't, for example, this is the view of Travers. He says that a quest for knowledge is essential aspect of knowledge. If you are trying to search for knowledge by verification or by creation of new knowledge, whatever way, it is all research. So we can now come to certain basic characteristics of research on the basis of this interpretation of the meaning of research given by different groups of people. Research is an organized and deliberate effort, organized and deliberate effort to collect new information or utilize existing knowledge for a new purpose. So research, this has basic characteristic. This first basic characteristic, it is an organized and deliberate effort. The moment we say organized, it means that there are certain steps involved. There are certain planning is involved. There are certain rules involved, and research is deliberate. So now, if as a common citizen, I'm doing some kind of research that is not research. If I'm doing research with certain objectives in mind, and then accordingly following with commensurate methodology, and then reaching to certain conclusions, then in that case it is research, otherwise it is not research. It is organized and it is deliberate effort. So I have to be conscious and I must be very clear what are the objectives, what for I'm doing this kind of research. I'm collecting new information or utilizing existing knowledge for any new purpose or any new application, that is research. And another important characteristic of research is that it seeks to answer worthwhile and fundamental questions by utilizing valid and reliable techniques. It answers certain fundamental questions which come to our mind, and we, till date, we have not been able to answer those questions. So it is a response to certain questions which are still lying unanswered. But the search for answer to these questions is through a process of using valid and reliable techniques. So what are the valid and reliable techniques that you will come to know? Valid and reliable techniques of research. If you are following those techniques of research, if you are, say, for example, and those techniques of research should be relevant to the objectives of your research, then in that case, perhaps you are conducting a sound research, valid research, purposeful research. So you are answering certain questions. Different ways you are answering certain questions, you are attaining certain objectives by way of research, that is always following a kind of reliable or valid technique, valid process. Research is logical and objective. It is highly logical, no hearsay, no biases based on personal beliefs, no biases based on my own inclinations. It is highly logical, the moment, and it is highly objective. No subjectivity comes into research. Even in case of social science researches, it is highly objective. It is verifiable. And for that, we use appropriate tests and methods and for collecting data, and then we arrive at conclusions based on that, those logical and objective methods. So the moment we say logical and objective, it means that the results of my research, whether it is social science research or legal research or science research, my results are verifiable. My conclusions are verifiable by any other person, by any number of persons. So whatever I'm saying, because I'm following a logic, a common logic, and others also follow a common logic, and I'm very objective, I'm not including any subjective opinion in that in my research, then anybody can verify and follow those methods, and then they can say, yes, this is a research which is worth accepting, working on. So research is always logical and it is objective. This is another important characteristic. And the final outcome of research contributes to gaining of new knowledge and better appreciation of the issue involved. This is also another important characteristic. It should always further the existing pool of knowledge in one way or the other. Appreciation of a particular issue, a better understanding of a particular issue also adds to knowledge. It's not always new knowledge. So gaining of new knowledge is one way, one contribution. But if you are understanding the problem better, the difficulties faced by, say, for example, the litigants better, you are not aware of that kind of perspective, cost perspective, delay perspective, psychological, etc., then you will be able to approach them better, etc. So whenever you are able to appreciate the issue in a better way than what has been done till now, that is research. Provided you are able to scientifically prove that you have you're talking in a very logical way. You have carried out this research and you have reached to this conclusion systematically and very objectively, and you have followed certain procedure. Research, if conducted in this way, it explains how and why of any fact or event. So when we are talking about gaining of new knowledge or appreciation of a new perspective, okay, we are explaining how we have come about this knowledge. The entire process we will be telling. It's very transparent. It should be open. Okay. And then also we'll say that why do we need these kind of new facts? Okay, why I have created or added to this new perspective or new interpretation of the available data, available information. You must justify that. So the procedure and the rationale of this must be very clear. Then only that new knowledge perhaps will be treated as research-based knowledge. Research, it is said, that follows scientific method. A scientific method, what we have been talking about, logical, objective, etc., all those things are scientific. So it always follows a scientific method. John Dewey was a famous sociologist, and he has written a great deal on research also. He has written on the thinking process also. John Dewey says that there is a thinking process which is highly rational, which is highly logical. So scientific method is in a manner akin to Dewey's thinking process, which follows sequential logical steps leading to the next one, and then concluding on some theory, concluding on some generalizations, some solutions, etc. I will discuss these steps later on. I just will go back to a very mundane thing, but that is important, quite important, that will help you in understanding the perspective of research, because this is the opportunity where you may come to know about this background. And the next classes, perhaps you will be told about the nitty-gritties of research, and therefore how research started and evolved. Just go back in the time, a few centuries back, the journey of time, and then you will start understanding how humans' quest about the operation of the universe started. But humans always tried to, they had a quest to understand how this universe is operating. So they were thinking. Basically, human mind is endowed with thinking process. Nature has given that great, you can say, thing to human beings, that it has a thinking ability, and thinking also takes place in human mind at different levels. And therefore, they continuously keep on thinking, imagining how this universe operates, how this sun operates, how Earth moves, what is this Earth, what is the sun, how stars operate, how do stars move, how rain takes place, how winds come, storms come. They keep thinking. In the initial days when they were thinking, then some people in the society, maybe some more intelligent people or influential people, they made them to understand that these are the things which are manipulated by supernatural powers. And they may be, you can call them gods. And the supernatural powers operate them, manipulate these things at their whim. Whenever they want to send rain, whenever they want to move sun, when they want to move stars or winds, they do it. So they follow a particular whim. And these people who used to make the others understand that, look, there is a supernatural power which is operating at whim, they also used to claim that they have a special channel of communication with those powers. This created a kind of class of people in the society which you may call priests, or you can say the religious leaders or religions or faiths. came up in the society. Priesthood was created in the society, and for a pretty long period of time, this priesthood swayed the whole world, in fact, which would say that, look, we have a space channel with the nature, with the supernatural powers, with the gods, and if you want to get anything done, you talk to us, you come to us, you please the supernatural powers through us, then you will get the things done. We will get the nature moved, acted upon, your problem, your need accordingly, if you please us. So they used to control it. There was a time, when in Europe the entire church was controlled, entire kingship was controlled by the church. The whole state was controlled by the church, and the dominance of the church, the priesthood as an authority, which was passing on from generation to generation for centuries, was so powerful that they won't allow to listen anything contrary to what they are saying, which is going to challenge their ideas or their dogmas or their views. And they were so powerful that they will get people punished also. So that created a rigid tradition. You can say this knowledge in the initial days, people came to learn from the authority of priests, from the authority of religion, or religious heads, or religious, you can say, various books, etc. They were the authority. So if anybody wants to ask anything, then they will go to the authority in the society, or within the family, the elderly people will be the authority, because they used to have certain things in their chest, in their mind. So people will consult them and try to find out the solution of their problems. So this gave generation to certain rigid traditions, or we can say some dogma, certain doctrines, which were authoritatively proclaimed by these people, by the church, by other practitioners in the society, regarding the processes of the nature. And they used to, on the basis of those traditions, apparently try to solve the problems of the people, satisfy the people, as the link between the nature and the human beings. And this tradition continued to be firmly rooted for a long time. And in fact, this tradition retarded the progress of research-based truths in the society for centuries, because of the dominance of the church, or dominance of dogma, dominance of all those traditions, and their dominance not only on the general society, on the governance of the society, on the state, on the kingship, and therefore they never wanted that real truth should come out. They themselves were not aware of the truth, but whatever was being handed down to them by their previous generations, they were continuing to spread that, and they wanted to control the operation of the whole society, continue with their hegemony in the society, and therefore they adversely affected research and retarded research. Uh, but gradually, people began to observe that what these people are saying, these authorities are saying, these church is saying, is perhaps not true. Their observations suggest, yes, there is an orderliness in the nature. Nature is not operating on the basis of whims, or on the basis of the requests made by these authorities, so-called authorities on earth. They found that there is a system, there is an orderliness in the nature, and that changes are not sudden, but they follow a particular path, and they follow certain cause and effect relationship. So from here, the beginning of the scientific inquiry starts. They feel that in the formulation of the natural processes, in the appearance of different things, there is a cause and effect relationship. Now, cause and effect relationship, in fact, is one of the basic principles of inquiry, basic principles of research. So research started emerging. If you talk about Europe, I think it is hardly since the last 500 years that they have started this kind of scientific inquiry. Otherwise, in in Greek, in the other parts of the Europe, this kind of scientific inquiry and discovering this orderliness in the form, in the nature, and finding out certain principles and laws on the basis of this cause and effect relationship was not allowed. Number of scientists were punished because of that reason, that they found out certain things which were unorthodox, and therefore that was not accepted, because that was a challenge to their authority, their survival. So these people who were observing very systematically, minutely, the changes in the nature, they for the first time came up with a proposition that changes in the nature can be predicted with a reasonable degree of effect, a reasonable degree of accuracy under certain conditions. If those conditions are obtained, then you can predict this change is likely to take place in the universe, on Earth, in the weather, and different phenomena. So they, for the first time, declared that prediction is possible, because now we know certain logical principles, cause and effect. So if you have those causes, then you can predict the likely effect on the likely change that may take place. So from here, in fact, research is started. Some people, on the basis of that, they discovered the movement of Earth, they discovered the shape of Earth, they discovered many other principles, and their explanations were not accepted. Rather, they were punished because they were not talking orthodox. They were trying to give unorthodox explanations of the things which were regarding nature, which were till now explained by orthodox people. So their courage to challenge, doubt the orthodox explanations was their in fact problem, and therefore they were punished. These people relied on empirical evidence. Now, this is something very important. Empirical evidence is a part of research. Empirical evidence is the contemporary evidence. What is there? What you are seeing? What is there before you? The empirically you are seeing, you are verifying, and therefore on the basis of that you are challenging the authority. Nothing is hidden. You are observing, you are recording, and then on that basis you are telling people. This was in fact the first step towards in the direction of scientific inquiry, where people started to rely on empirical evidence and discover cause and effect relationship, and started predicting on the basis of that empirical evidence. We can say this was the beginning of scientific inquiry in the world. However, observations used to be, I mean, in the beginning, of course, I should say, observations used to be unsystematic, did not follow any objective method, overgeneralize on the basis of incomplete experience or incomplete evidence or limited evidence. And these observations and these generalizations ignored the complex factors operating simultaneously in the nature. So apparently whatever they could observe, they could see, on the basis of that they generalized. So we can say it was a kind of crude research. It was a crude scientific inquiry, which could not understand the other factors which will affect those facts, and on that basis you can change the interpretation of those events or those natural phenomena. And many times what used to happen that it also got mixed with the feelings and prejudices of the people who are observing, who are making observations and who are making conclusions. In a perfect research, there is no scope of feelings, there is no scope of prejudices, because it is against objectivity. So subjectivity creeps in if you are trying to record your observations, interpret your evidences on the basis of your feelings. You feel like that. No, that is not allowed. So these conclusions initially were questions. That's why you see the discoveries in the beginning were changed, and in fact, science, the discoveries, many scientific principles which are discovered by the previous scientists got changed over a period of time because new scientific inquiries take place, new knowledge comes in, and therefore they reform it, they improve it, and therefore the previous ones are changed. And new facts come to light, and therefore the previous principles are refined or replaced. When people began to think systematically about thinking itself, see something important. When people began to think systematically about thinking, then the era of logic began. People started thinking that the thinking itself demands a logical process, a system. Since thinking cannot take place haphazardly. So when they started thinking systematically, as thinking demands that you should think systematically, how to record evidence, in what connection, when. You have to be very, very systematic in thinking. It should not be just by reflection. It should not be by your intuition, by your intelligence. Then from that began the era of logic, logical thinking era, you can say. Rational thinking era begins from it. And the research is based, the entire process of research is based on logic. I said in the beginning, logical and objective. If your process is logical and objective, it can be verified by any other person who also follows the same process, and therefore your research is acceptable. Now, the first systematic approach to logic or to reasoning is attributed to Aristotle and some of the Greek scientists, and that is called deductive method. This is the systematic approach to research that is called deductive method. You all have heard about deductive method. The process of deduction or the process of deductive reasoning has been traditionally illustrated with a syllogism. What is syllogism? Syllogism is a kind of classification or categorization. So we put things into one particular class or category or a type, and then on that basis try to explain logically the relationship between a bigger group and a small phenomena. And it consists of three statements. In the syllogic classification, we try to establish logical relationship between three parts, we can say, of a statement or a proposition. And these three parts include, in deductive method, a major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion. We start from the major premise. A major premise is a kind of major belief or a kind of general assumption. And then we have a minor premise, and then we see the relationship between the two, and then we conclude, we give a conclusion on that basis. So this is called deductive. We deduct from a major premise the relationship for a smaller one. In Greek, syllogism means to infer from major premise, to infer, to count, or to reckon. This is the meaning of syllogism. Syllogism is the basis of deductive method. That is, syllogism in easy terms is categorization, we can say. So a major premise is a kind of is an example of a belief or a general assumption held to be true. Now, first of all, in deductive method, I should have a major premise, I should have a belief, I should have a general assumption, and I should also claim that that assumption is true. That belief is true. So unless that is held as true, that held as valid, I cannot proceed further. Okay, and the minor premise is a specific example of that belief. which is stated in the major premise. So whatever is stated in the major premise, whatever belief you are mentioning, an example, a small example of that major premise is there in the minor premise, and therefore you infer by way of relating these two premises, major premise and minor premise, and that is the, you can say that conclusion is the example of a logical relationship between the major and minor premise. This you can understand with a couple of examples I would like to give. For example, the major premise is all furniture from that store, from X store, you can say, are new. Getting this is a major premise. My belief is that whatever furniture is available in that shop is new. Okay, and maybe premise always has a basis. I might have a basis for saying this, for holding this kind of belief about that shop, that store, that all the furniture in that shop is new. Now, a minor premise in this example is this furniture. Now you're talking about a particular furniture is from that store. Okay, so in your house you have a piece of furniture which you have bought from that shop. Okay, now you say this furniture is from that store, and therefore what does it mean? Since I have bought it from that store which always has new furniture, okay, therefore the conclusion, the third part of the statement of deduction is therefore this furniture is new. Okay, so by implication, by inference, this furniture is new which I have bought from that shop. But this is all based on my belief. Maybe there are a number of factors behind the veil which I don't know. So another example you can take of major premise. This is a very famous example. All men are mortal. Yes. Socrates is a man. So Socrates is also mortal. Major premise, all men are mortal. Minor premise, Socrates is a man. And the conclusion is that Socrates is also mortal. So it's very, very sound and valid relationship between major and minor premise. So deductive method, moving from the general assumption to the specific application, made a very significant contribution to the modern problem solving methods. Okay, it's a very significant contribution. If you have general assumption, but I say it again that your major premise, your general assumption is not based on hearsay. It is also based on certain facts or certain observations. And if that is based on certain observations, then, for example, major premise, all men are mortal. You have seen men after men die. Okay, so now you have this belief that all men are mortal. And therefore, I see an X person, Socrates, a big philosopher, whatever be the strength of that philosopher or value or repute of that philosopher, because he is a man, he has to die. He is also mortal. One day he will also end. So that is the kind of relationship between the major and minor premise. And this is deductive method, that you, based on general assumption, you come to the specific application, and then you conclude, and the conclusion is in fact the generalization, the inference, the you can say the research-based learning. It's a very, very crude form of course. However, deduction was not fruitful in arriving at new truths. The facts are available. Now you are verifying another fact in the light of a train of facts, a similar type of facts, a bunch of facts. A new one of the similar type or belonging to that category, belong to that class. You are trying to say that, yes, it also belongs to that, therefore it holds the same relationship. It also may be having those characteristics. So in case of furniture, this furniture which I have bought has also the same characteristic as the other furniture lying in that store that is newness. It is also new. Okay. So, but deduction was not very fruitful because it is not adding to any new knowledge, any new truths. Okay. Acceptance of incomplete or false major premises that were based on old dogmas or unreliable authority could only lead to error. So if suppose your premise is based on certain unreliable authority or dogma, you don't know. If you are basing your major premise on that, then of course your minor premise and the relationship you are establishing for that may be wrong. So this was realized after centuries that this deductive method perhaps is alone is not very useful for conducting logical scientific research. Now, centuries after, there was another gentleman, Francis Bacon, who advocated direct observation of a phenomenon. Don't go by classes. You observe phenomena directly. You observe it once, twice, thrice, 4 times, many times, and then you arrive at conclusion or you arrive at generalization. Every day you see sun is appearing from a particular side, then you decide about it. So he talked about direct observation. Now, direct observation is a very important tool in scientific research. Direct observation of the phenomena, of the changes taking place, of the response being given by any object, etc. That is something. So on that basis, we conclude. Of course, that observation has to be systematic, scientific, based on some reliable tools, etc. But generalization can be made through direct observation. This was changed. So now we enter into an era of inductive reasoning, from deductive reasoning to inductive reasoning. So if there is a trend you find, then okay, generalize on that basis. This is called inductive reasoning. And through many individual observations, one after the other, you can make generalization. We moved from a specific observation to generalization. This was widely used by scientists for quite a long time. And this was the main characteristic of this inductive reasoning, direct observation, was that it was not adversely affected or hampered by false premises, because there was no premise there. You are doing it independently. Okay, so this was not hampered by false premises, and therefore this was more reliable. This direct observation and generalizations based on this. So we are moving from deductive to inductive. Okay, but interestingly, inductive process also had certain limitations, and therefore we moved on to a kind of alternative approach in research. Inductive method alone did not provide a completely satisfactory system for the solution of the problems. A random collection of individual observations without unifying concepts or focus often obscured investigations, and therefore rarely led to a generalization. Now, if you are observing individually number of times, but if you are observing them randomly without any direction, without any unifying concept behind, without any unifying focus, a particular focus, then in that case, your investigation perhaps may not be very trustworthy, very reliable, and you can't generalize on that basis, on those random collection of the individual observations. So it means that you have to have some kind of a central point, a point of focus. Focusing on that, you have to make series of observations. Then only you can bring a kind of conclusion which is trustworthy, which is reliable, which is giving you a feel of the truth, which is acceptable. And this happened. If the observations, a set of observations is systematically done, keeping one particular focus in view, and by another person by keeping another focus in view, then the same phenomena, for the same phenomena, when the observations has been done by different groups of people with different focus, different objective, or you can say different target, then for the same phenomena, opposing theories have come up. Different facts have come up. Therefore, how are you doing independent observations, series of observations? Why are you doing? For what purpose are you doing? So some focus has to be there. Some unifying focus has to be there in your observations. That is the limitation, you can say, of the inductive process. Now, people have tried to integrate deductive and inductive method. It is a very late development in 19th century. And people say that Darwin was responsible for unifying the deductive inductive approaches and leading to a kind of integrated approach for research. And Darwin was initially confused when he was thinking about the evolution of the species. While he was continuously thinking about it, he came across a piece written by Malthus, very famous piece of Malthus Malthus was considered to be the father of economics, and also his work on population is very famous. So Malthus wrote a piece, Essay on Population. And Darwin came across that essay on population written by Malthus. He found that in the essay of Malthus, he has suggested certain assumptions, and on the basis of the assumptions, how population will grow, how population will be controlled by nature, certain assumptions were there. Now Darwin realized that if I have certain assumptions before me, and on having certain assumptions, if I proceed on making certain observations about animals, about species, then perhaps I'll be able to infer something very meaningful. So, and I'll be able to reach to the origin of different species. Now, what is this assumption? So, this assumption is a hypothesis. You, in the beginning of the research, must have certain assumption. If you don't have certain assumption, that is, you assume that the things will behave like that. You hypothesize a kind of tentative. You can say you say a tentative conclusion is there, which is not final. It is a tentative one. So you hypothesize. You give a hypothesis. This assumption is called hypothesis. Is provided in the beginning. So if a hypothesis or an assumption is given in the beginning, then what happens? Your entire effort of making observations, searching for truth, searching for facts, searching for information will be focused on that assumption, towards that assumption. And you will produce, you will proceed to deduce specific consequences suggested by that hypothesis. Either you will succeed in that or you will fail. You will accept the hypothesis that that assumption was true, or that in your process of observation, the process of finding out the truth, you will say that no, that hypothesis was not true, the assumption was wrong, and therefore you will generalize accordingly. The major premise of the deductive method was now in the integrated approach replaced by assumption. You can say the major premise, instead of major premise, we have an assumption. We assume certain things. But I'll come to that later on. We don't again assume write down assumptions. We decide about assumptions whimsically. We assume on the basis of certain, again, facts, certain scientific facts, certain observations, or say certain previous findings, certain previous researches, previous data. So this was replaced by assumption, or you can say this was major premise was replaced by hypothesis in very, very crude and simple terms. And that those assumptions were subsequently tested by the collection and logical analysis of data. So we call it in science and in research testing of the hypothesis, or testing of the assumption. And this testing is done by collecting data and then analyzing that data logically depending upon the objective. And then we say, yes, this assumption is proved, or it is confirmed, it is upheld, or this is not upheld. This deductive inductive method is now recognized as an example of scientific approach. So this is the example of scientific approach of research, and this is one of the major methods which are followed in research. Now, I'll just say a few words about the scientific method, though maybe later on also you come to know about the steps of scientific method, the steps of scientific research. And the steps of scientific method have been given more beautifully by John Dewey in his work. What are the steps in scientific method or scientific inquiry? First of all, if you are sitting down to conduct a scientific inquiry, then first step is that there should be a felt difficulty. Felt difficulty. You must feel, yeah, there is a difficulty, there is a deficiency, there is a need, there is a problem. Now, this felt difficulty is nothing but a research problem. There is a research problem before you. You are not able to do certain things. You are not able to make certain students understand what you are teaching. There's a felt difficulty. You are not able to move your say things in such speed, etc. So if there is a felt difficulty, or you are not able to understand the dynamics of the phenomena in the society, you are feeling certain difficulty, and you are moving from the felt difficulty. So the first step in the scientific method is you must have a felt difficulty, which takes the shape of a research problem. So you have a research problem. So what do? You identify a research problem. This felt difficulty is articulated in the identified problem, and it is properly defined. The second step in research, you identify what exactly is the problem, and then you articulate it. A problem may be can be defined in a very broad term. It may be defined in a focused term. A good problem which is going to be researched by you has to be defined in a very focused term. And then once you do that you identify the problem and you define it in a very focused manner, then you move on to collect certain observations, and you classification of data considered relevant to your problem. You have not started research. If that be my problem, then what are the kind of information available about that problem? Has anybody worked on that? You try to find out what is already available, what has already been said, and I feel that yes, still my answer, my problem has not been solved by previous studies, though they relate to my area, they relate to this particular field, and but the trend says that yes, if this is the kind of situation that may be probable problem. So you try to observe certain things in the society on that basis, or collect certain data, and then you classify that data, which you consider to be relevant to your problem, and then on that basis you formulate a kind of tentative assumption, tentative hypothesis, which is based on your observations or the phenomena which is to be researched. So here, your hypothesis formation, your assumption is based on certain information, certain study, certain research. It is not based on your feeling. It is not based on your own understanding of just understanding. You are supporting, it means that your assumption of research or thesis, hypothesis is based on certain observations, certain data, certain other records, reports, etc. And then you formulate a hypothesis. And then Once you say that these are the hypotheses, as I said, these are the tentative hypotheses. These hypotheses, these are some assumptions may hold true, may not hold true. Okay, so now you sit down to collect evidences relating to that hypothesis. Now you see the major premise you have established on the basis of existing observations or data available, information available, etc. And now you collect evidence relating to this hypothesis further, which will relate it to your problem. That is, you collect data, you organize that data, and you, on that basis, test the hypothesis. Whether this statement, this assumption is true or not, the data will hold out. Analysis will hold out whether what you are saying, what you are claiming is right or wrong. If the data, its analysis, systematic analysis is supporting your hypothesis, then you will say, yes, you will reach to the conclusion, yes, this is true, and this is the principle. You can generalize it, you can conclude on that basis. So the final stage in the scientific method is that on the basis of testing of on the basis of the results of the testing of the hypothesis, which is based on collected evidences and their analysis, you generalize, you arrive at conclusion. So this is how you conduct scientific inquiry, scientific research. But scientific research may be of different type. It may be fundamental research, where you are going to add new knowledge, just add new knowledge to the corpus of knowledge which is available. It may be applied research, where you are applying the existing principles in a particular situation relating to you, your field, your area of practice. Or it may be evaluative research, where you are trying to evaluate the already existing, already implemented plans, programs, other schemes, other approaches. So this may be evaluation, how successful, how effective, evaluation of, say, the application of a particular tool or any process. So evaluative research may also take up successfulness of the program of, say, for example, a universalization of education, successfulness of, say, for example, any medical program, or successfulness of, say, the program of a legal aid system in the courts, etc. So this may also be evaluative research. You don't discover any kind of new knowledge, but you see, you ascertain the success or effectiveness of any given program or any given tool, any given equipment, any given process, etc. And there can be another kind of research which doesn't add to the corpus of knowledge, that is called action research. Action research is conducted by the practitioner, himself or herself. Just the purpose of the action research is entirely different than the previous researches. The previous researches inform the general public for their benefit. Sometimes it is informing the policymakers, say, for example, evaluation research. Sometimes it is informing the technocrats. Sometimes it is informing the teachers, or it is informing other professionals. But action research is conducted, and those other researches are conducted by qualified professional researchers. Not everybody, unless equipped with the methodology of research, cannot conduct those kind of research. But action research is the kind of research which can be conducted by an ordinary teacher, even a primary school teacher or nursery school teacher. Ordinary practitioner can conduct it without having, you can say, competence of systematic detailed research. So perhaps he can conduct that research, she can conduct that research without knowing various statistical techniques or development of tools, the process and methods of tools, etc., etc. So action research is just meant for improving the practice of a practitioner by himself or herself. It is not for generalization for others. It is very, very limited. It is limited to his or her own situation, just to improve oneself own effectiveness. So these are different types of researches. You'll come to know about that in detail later on, I think, over the next few days. I would like to stop over here. I think this would have given you some idea as to what is scientific inquiry and what is scientific research and what is scientific method of research. Yeah.
Sir, we may take questions, sir.
Yeah.
Maybe take questions.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Dhanya ma'am, are there any questions there?
No,
Dhanya ma'am?
no, ma'am. Actually, there is no question in the chat box, ma'am. If they have any question, we may allow them to unmute and ask.
Yeah, there is one question. There is one question somewhere from. There is one question in the chat box. Just check out.
There is
Yeah,
a
please.
question from Mr. Abhishek, and he's asking whether you can suggest a particular textbook for this topic.
I'm not getting.
Sir, they're actually asking for some suggestions on textbook which they can refer on research methodology.
Can you please repeat?
Sir, they're asking for some suggestions on textbook which they can use, which they can refer for research methodology.
Someone else's, I think, is unmuted, and therefore I'm not getting clearly.
So can you please suggest some textbooks for them?
Question? Yes.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Actually, we want.
Why I'm not getting this? Hello?
Dhanya, there is one question.
Can you write that question?
Dhanya, there is one question. Is there a difference between scientific research and descriptive research?
There is a lot of echo in your voice.
Hello, sir. Am I audible now?
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, there is one question. How scientific research is different from normative research?
Why?
How scientific research is different from normative research, sir?
Not getting your question still.
Anuj, if you can unmute yourself.
Can you send me this question? I'll respond on the email.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, we can do that.
Please. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Sir, am I audible to you? Hello. Ma'am, I think it's not audible to sir, so we can write it on email, sir.
Yeah, please. Your voice is coming. There's a lot of confusion.
That is because more mics are on. Because of that, you find this echo.
Many mics are on. Okay, send me these questions.
Dhanya?
Yes, ma'am.
Take the questions and put it in the mail to sir.
Definitely, ma'am. I'll do that.
Okay. And now ask somebody to give the feedback and the vote of thanks.
It
was indeed a very enlightening session, sir, wherein you shared your views on scientific inquiry. We learned how important that in research, we learned the importance of research in the legal field in this changing or dynamic world. So you highlighted how necessary it is for us professionals to understand and appreciate the nuances of research. We don't realize, but we conduct research on a daily basis without any set methodology. Further, characteristics of research were discussed by you, and we learned how rationale and logic play a very important role in any kind of research. The various types of, the various stages of development of scientific inquiry was also discussed, along with many examples. The most important element of scientific inquiry, as we know, is logic, and further the steps of inquiry as given by John Dewey were also discussed. This was indeed a very enlightening experience for all of us. And on behalf of the entire GNLU family, I would extend heartfelt gratitude to Professor Dr. Siddiqui for speaking, for sparing his time and sharing bits of his vast knowledge, which is surely going to be of immense help to all of us in our pursuits. Thanks a lot, sir.
Welcome, please. So is this over?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir?
So
Am I audible, sir?
Dr.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are.
On my personal behalf and on behalf of Gujarat National Law University, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to you for spending such a long time and sharing your experience and your knowledge with the students. It's not knowledge, it is wisdom. Probably they don't understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. So I'm really very, very grateful to you for being with us and sharing with us. Thank you very, very much, sir.
You are welcome, madam.